Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we're going to be talking about all the books that I read recently. Most of these were in June, but some of them were outside of June. Like the first book I'm going to talk about, which is The Witch Collector by Charissa Weeks. So, you guys, this book pissed me off so much. I felt betrayed by anyone who had recommended it, which is, I'm just joking, you guys. I'm being hyperbolic. But no, I was genuinely upset and confused as to why this book got so much hype. But, don't turn off your screens. I decided to, shove my pride down, give the second book a chance. I was really, really judgmental going into it because I did not like the first book. So, I was not willing to accept even something mediocre. I needed it to exceed my expectations. And it really did. I don't want to say it's a 5-star read. I think I gave it 4 stars, but I really, really, really enjoyed the second book. So, let me tell you what the first book is about. The premise is, this witch collector comes to different villages, and I think he takes one witch each year or something back to the kingdom, and nobody knows what they do with these witches, why they do this. Our main character, Raina. By the way, if I ever say anything wrong, I might be mixing up my books, but I'm trying my best, okay? So, our main character, Raina, has a sister named Nafil, who I believe was one of the victims of the witch collector's kidnappings. And so not only is he an enemy to witches because he does this, but Raina has a personal vendetta against him too because he took her sister and she hasn't talked to her since she's been gone. So, the whole like plot line about her sister, I feel like I can't say much without spoiling, but there was just a lot in this book that I felt like wasn't going to be fully explained. Like I don't know why I was being so judgmental because I'm usually not like this, but I felt like Charissa was putting so many ideas and plots out there that I was not confident were going to be fully explained because, and by the way, I'm not one of those people that thinks everything needs to be explained in book 1 because that makes no damn sense. Like, it's a series. It's supposed to be a secret. It's supposed to be a mystery. That's what gets you reading. But I felt like I assumed it was lazy writing. I assumed in the second book that it wasn't going to be explained. I thought these are going to be plot holes, and I just made a lot of assumptions. But rightfully so, because I felt like nothing was explained in book 1, which makes sense. It was really very much setting the scene. It was a shorter book, but the romance was moving so fast, and it felt like that was the focus, and the world felt so small. It felt like there was low stakes. Like there wasn't enough intrigue, in my opinion. Like, honestly, I feel passionate about the fact that book 1 should have given more. But I don't know, a lot of people like this book, but there's actually another group of people who dislike it too. And I was very much one of those people. I give that book 2 stars. I still don't like it, but I highly recommend you guys just push through it, okay? Because the second book definitely gave. Okay, we started getting some backstory. I forgot to mention. So I mentioned the sister, that whole lore. We didn't get really anything about that. And just like I said, the quick moving romance between the two main characters, which, like I said, this is an enemies arc with him being the witch collector and Raina being the witch. Did I mention that she's kidnapped, I think, to be the witch that goes back to the kingdom? So that's how they end up in close quarters. And I just felt like, how are they moving so quickly from the enemies to lovers? Like the whole point of that arc is to draw it out. Like it was very unserious. So I was like, okay, we already moved so fast with the romance. Where do we go from here? Then I felt like the side characters were so underdeveloped and boring. I still feel that way. Like after reading the first book, like I felt nothing. I didn't feel any chemistry between the two main characters. I felt like they didn't connect emotionally. They didn't connect. There was no enemies. There was no like friends bridging into the lovers arc. Like I was so peeved. Also her magic as a witch, like it just felt like she could do anything basically. So I'm like, okay, there's basically no stakes. Like she's so powerful and we don't get any training scenes. How is she this powerful if she's just been sheltered in this village her whole life? Like what is going on? What else am I missing? There was definitely more as to why I didn't like book 1, but we get into book 2. Oh, okay, sorry. Let me just say, our main character had a past. I don't know if I could say it, but like he had like a traumatic relationship That's the best way I'm going to say it, in his past. And it was very significant, okay? This wasn't just like, oh, some ex-girlfriend he dated for like 2 weeks and they broke up. Like, no, it was like a very tragic situation that we as the reader find out about. But that was it. Like, Raina never asked like questions about it. I don't even know if she knows the full extent of it, but it just felt like, why did we learn this tragic backstory? Like, was there a reason to it? So there were so many things about the first book that I felt like, this is not going to be explained in book 2. Like, it felt like, I don't know. I thought it was lazy writing. Okay, let me get to the point, girl. So I get to book 2. All the questions I had, all the issues I had were resolved. Like, the romance slowed down, but it by the way, both books are spicy. But it felt like the romance was earned. I started to see that chemistry form. They started learning about each other, confiding in each other. That stuff I was telling you about his traumatic past was discussed, was circled back to in a big way. The story became a lot more intricate in book 2. We started getting more POVs. There was more mystery and intrigue added to the book overall, that it just felt addicting. Like, I wanted to finish it and I wanted to get answers, and I started rooting for the couple, whereas in book 2 I could care less. Like, it just felt so lustful and stupid. But in book 2 I started really seeing how much our main male character cared for our female main character, and just at times I really felt the love. Like, it really got me. I don't know, he reminds me of some other male main characters that I really enjoy, and it caught me by surprise because he really charmed me. Okay, so what else? And then obviously we get more intel into the sister. Not everything is explained, nor would I want it to be, but it really felt like the issues I had with the first book were resolved. That also includes the magic, where I felt like, where is the training? Why is she knowing how to do everything automatically? And I felt like we actually saw her train in book 2 and, fail and try again and fail and try again, without being too excessive, but at least seeing that. So we understood she's not all powerful. And then just like, there was just a lot that went on in this book. Like, it was actually a really great read, a really entertaining read. I felt like the side characters were much better developed. Like, I don't know if they were in book 1. I genuinely don't remember, but it felt like they were way more developed. Like, they just had an actual personality. Could you believe it? So anyway, I really enjoyed book 2. By the way, great news has come out that Charissa is writing book 4. I thought it was already written, but I think she's just now writing it. So I cannot wait. I'm kind of holding off on reading the novella because what's the rush? As you will see, that's how I am sometimes. Like, I just sometimes will put off continuing in a series if I don't want it to end or the books are not all the way out. Okay, so highly recommend this series, but I understand if you don't like book 1. Trust me, I gave it 2 stars. But that's like the first time in a long time, I think, that I've had such a drastic difference with how I felt with book 1 and 2. Because usually if I don't like the first book, I'm not going to keep going. Like, back when I was single, if I didn't like the first date, I would not go on a second date with that guy. And that's valid if it was a really bad date. But you never know. Like, this is a good lesson because I felt like the first book was really bad, in my opinion, in my humble opinion. So that just goes to show you, sometimes second chances are a good thing. Sometimes. Okay, moving on is House of Beating Wings by Olivia Wildenstein. Listen, I gave up on this book. It was a DNF. So I hate criticizing books that I haven't finished. Genuinely, because how can you have so many opinions but you didn't finish the book? All I'm saying is I took a leap of assumption into thinking that this was going to be kind of not my thing. I don't know if I'm down with the whole shifters thing, because then when they start flirting with the person while they're shifted into an animal form or whatever form it is, it does make me uncomfortable. Like, I read a book recently where the guy was a shifter and he became a dragon or whatever, but they didn't have any awkward encounters while he was in his animal form. Maybe it will come at some point. I don't know. It's just, for me, it makes me uncomfortable. Let me just say the main male love interest is a crow shifter. And that's another thing, y'all. I think that's another thing that it doesn't sit right. I don't know. This is going to maybe be offensive to some people, but birds just kind of freak me out. You know, some people say, you know, they're employed by the FBI or CIA. I don't know. It's just, for me, it's not that. It's just birds kind of just freak me out. Just like the way they like quickly move their head, or like their beak is so sharp and their talons. Like, listen, do I want anything bad to happen to birds? No. Like, I'm not. Don't come at me, because I know some people are just, I don't know. Like, my friend is one of those people. She loves all animals, insects. Like, she cries at the thought of like me swatting a fly. I don't know. So if you're one of those people, don't take offense. It's just, okay, God forbid, I don't want the love interest to be a crow. Okay. So, you know, and it was this whole awkward scene where, what did she say again? Sorry, y'all. I need to find it. Let me find it. This person, Chelsea, left a review on Goodreads that said, what really was the nail in the coffin was our FMC poking the cloaca of a bird statue and not being able to tell if the crow checking out her body was a man because it didn't have any genitalia. I don't, but that part where she poked the cloaca, which I honestly don't know what that means. Yes, I'm Latina and I'm not fluent in Spanish. I hope that that's Spanish. Otherwise, that's embarrassing. But like, that part, I'm sorry, that just had me side-eyeing a little bit. Like, I can't continue confidently after that scene. Like, that alone just tells me something's off here, you know? And when I first started reading this book, actually, I really liked the writing, and I thought that this was going to be a good read, but it wasn't even just that scene particularly, but it was just some other parts about Olivia's writing. Maybe just some phrases that were said, or it just felt a little bit immature, and it made me uncomfortable. Okay, that's the bottom line. Let's move on. Okay, next up is A Kingdom of Stars and Shadows by Holly Renee. Y'all, this was another 2-star. What was this? I said it was hot, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't good. And actually, looking back at it, I looked back at my highlights and I didn't highlight a lot. So was it hot? No, I think it was smutty. There was lots. When I say lots, I mean lots of spicy scenes. And I complained about this with Vows and Ruins by Helen Schurer. And looking back, I don't know if that was valid. I'm going to have to reread that book at some point. But this book was pure smut. Like, where was the plot? Where was the plot? Where was it? Okay, so I don't know. Maybe this is erotica, but for me, it's not what I want. Okay, lots of spice is fine, but I also need a lot of plot. Okay, it can be a small world, but it can't be, the main focus cannot be the sex. Like, okay, if you want to make the main focus of the romance, fine, but I just, no. So I don't even know why I said it was hot. Like I said, it was spicy. I was reading a lot of spice on page, but it actually wasn't that hot, because the gag is spice, or the smut on page is, in my opinion, only hot if I feel a connection, if I feel the tension. And I have something to tell y'all about another Holly Renee book that I feel like did a really good job of setting it up. This book was just not it, okay? It was not it. But if you're looking for something that is pure smut, go ahead. But like I said, it won't do anything for you if you need, it doesn't have to be an emotional connection necessarily, but if you need some sort of connection outside of just simply two people touching each other, I don't feel like you're gonna get that. I don't know. Okay, so moving on, Melissa K. Rorick, Lady of Darkness. I did decide to read this. So I heard a lot of comparisons to Throne of Glass by SJM, and I don't see it so far. I mean, obviously some things I do see, like, I'm not gonna lie, but I'm not understanding the plagiarism accusations, so maybe I will save my full commentary and opinion on that until I finish the series. I have heard from Raven-Haired Reader on YouTube that the similarities to Throne of Glass or ACOTAR or whatever end or lessen as the series goes on. So if that's true and the first book is the most similar to TOG, I'm just not understanding why. Like, there's no competition in the First Lady of Darkness book. I mean, she is an assassin, our main character, Scarlett Monroe, and she has two sisters. And I thought that was going to be a main part of the book. Like, we would have 3 POVs and that the sister bond would be a big focus of the book, but I feel like it's not. Like, Scarlett is our main character because I'm on the second book now, and I still feel like, yes, we get an insight into her relationships or experiences with her other 2 sisters, but I thought it would be more of a thing where, again, we would get the POVs of the other sisters and we would like explore their love lives and get insight into their lives. And maybe that's another reason why people compare it to ACOTAR. What? Because there's 3 sisters? It's just like none of it is the same, in my opinion. Like, the stuff that happens to Scarlett, the way Scarlett moves, maybe you could compare her to Nesta, but I feel like she's even more aggressive than Nesta. She has her own personality. She has her own trauma. I don't know if I can say anything, but like, her being a Lady of Darkness, maybe that's another reason actually why people compare her to Nesta, because Nesta is, I don't want to say if y'all haven't read the books, but I guess I can't say it. But I could understand maybe why people say, oh, she reminds me of Nesta, but I would never say, oh, she plagiarized Nesta's whole personality and her whole life story and her powers and or lack thereof. I don't know. Like, I'm not saying anything for sure, but I wouldn't say that at all. TBH. Like, it's everything about this feels, not everything, but a lot about it feels unique. That's my opinion. That's my opinion. So I liked the first book. Look up trigger warnings. I said this had potential to be a 4-star, but all the reveals / twists were just way too predictable. I agree with that. Like, this was a good first book. It definitely got me intrigued. Did I agree with everything Scarlett did? No, but I do support women's rights and women's wrongs being so serious. Yes, I'm hypocritical, or yes, I, don't extend the same grace to men. If y'all know how I feel about Rowan from Throne of Glass, you may be thinking, how can you support Scarlett? Because I do. Because women. Literally. Like, I am radical in that way. If you get it, you get it. If you don't, you don't. So anyway, yes, when I finished this book, I wasn't gagged. I wasn't super excited to talk about it, but I was excited to move on to the next. Like, I want to see where this goes because I feel like, it just set the tone. It just set us up. And I think that it could get really interesting and really exciting depending on where it goes. So the second book I did start, and I like it so far, but I'm still waiting to get that feeling. Like, I don't feel obsessed. Again, I don't feel obsessed or excited about this series. I do like it. I really do like the main romance. I like the male main character. I think that he's just really likable. Because if you like a more intimidating, dominant woman and a more sensitive man, but he's not super soft and he doesn't, I don't think he's a pushover. Maybe some people might disagree. Like, but it is that kind of dynamic where I feel like she's just a little bit more the dominant one, and he is persistent in a good way and patient. And if you like that type of dynamic, then I think you will like this couple. I find it interesting that she lashes out and the man is continuously there for her. It kind of reminds me of Deanna and, I don't know if I can say the name. I can say it. Deanna and Sam Keel from the Book of Azrael, Throne of Broken Gods. I think that's a good example because in that book, Sam Keel is still dominant. Sam Keel is still, he's not a pushover, but he is patient. He's always there for her. No matter how many times Deanna lashes out, no matter how much time she needs, he is loyal and he is such a man for that. So with Soren in Lady of Darkness, it's a similar thing. So if you like that couple, you will probably like this. I do prefer Book of Azrael. I do think Book of Azrael is darker overall. I think it's just a better book overall. Not to compare, but just saying, like, I'm like, if you loved Book of Azrael and you read that first, like, I just want to tell you that I don't think Lady of Darkness is as good in my opinion thus far, but the characters do remind me of each other, and I think you might like this one if you haven't read that one, and vice versa. Okay, so moving on to, this is the last book I wanted to talk about. This is A Dawn of Onyx by Kate Golden. I really hope you all made it this far because this is one of my favorite books that I've read recently. I did give it 5 stars, which I was shook, and I was hesitant to give it 5 stars because I'm like, is it worth it? Like, blah, blah, blah. Yes, it really is. Like, the amount of mythical creatures that were in this book really pleased me. Okay, I'm so tired. Well, there is fae in this book. There are fae. Is fae in this book. So don't get me wrong. Like, yes, there's fae, but there are also so many other types of magic. There's just things that I haven't read before. Like, it's not the same. You know, what's another one? Like, what's another common, I don't know, like, it's not werewolves or vampires. I mean, maybe, I can't remember at the top of my head, but it's like stuff I have not seen in books before. Like well, I have read about a chimera, but there's a chimera, there's salamanders, I think, that breathe fire, there's ogres, and I just loved that. I found that so interesting because I feel like a lot of books I read, it's just like one mythical creature. And there's so many to pick from. So I really enjoyed that. There were so many, and there's more in the second book, you know. That was really, really fun and interesting to read about. Then I said that this was perfectly paced. I loved almost all of the characters. They were fleshed out and interesting. Yep. Like, I liked all the side characters. Did I like all of them? Yeah, I don't know. I really liked our main character. I said some of the plot twists got me. Yup. Like, it didn't feel super, super predictable. Like, nothing about this felt like, oh, it's very, very much copy paste the same format. Like, and I'm not even saying like plagiarism wise, but I'm saying like, you know, maybe that's where people get the Lady of Darkness comparisons to ACOTAR and TOG, even though I don't think it's valid to claim plagiarism, but I could see what they mean maybe by the same format of, you know, Three Sisters, and there's fae, and you know what I mean, or like shadow magic or whatever. In this book, I can't say that. Like, she did not stick to the format. Maybe with fae being, you know, one of the main mythical creatures, sure, but there were so many unique mythical creatures and abilities added to it. This did get me out of a slump. I am just really invested in the main romance, and I really like the second book so far too. I started it, A Promise of Peridot, and I'm sad because the third book doesn't come out until October, but and hopefully it doesn't get pushed back. I really hope it doesn't. But I am really liking this so far. Let me see if I have any highlights I want to share. Okay, I will say he uses the pet name Bird or Little Bird, which I always thought I hated this pet name, and I don't like it particularly, but I feel like it kind of grew on me as I kept reading. So I will say, you know, if you hate that pet name, just be made aware. And I will say the main male character, the love interest, is dominant, and just be prepared for that. It's a little bit taboo, but actually with the book I just finished reading, which was what? Oh, The Veiled Kingdom. That one was like very taboo, like very possessive and dominant. I feel like I'm gonna have to talk about that in another book. To the point where it was like a little bit concerning. And I will say that the main male character, the main love interest in this book, is quite dominant, quite controlling. And I do have a problem with that in books just because sometimes I feel like it's borderline normalizing emotional abuse. And I have had an experience with a really controlling, possessive guy. But I think it can be tastefully done. I think it's okay to have like a taboo, I don't know, relationship or dynamic in your books, but it's just, I never want to feel like the female main character is not consenting or not like fully aware or coherent about what's going on. Like, I think it's okay if she's like a willing submissive, but then it's hard because I think people can be manipulated, and I think people can consent but then realize later that it was abusive, like especially if they're just naive and young. And I don't feel like that was the case in this book, but in another book I read where the male main character was even more controlling, even more possessive than this one, I was a little concerned there. But I don't really feel that same concern with this series because I don't think it goes too far. I don't know. Like, it's kind of hard because okay, I can't really go into depth about all the, scenes where something happened that rubbed me the wrong way and what, like, at the end of the day, do I want to do the deep psychoanalysis into it? Probably not. But, the rational part of me wants to. Would I recommend this type of book to like a young girl to read? Definitely not. Definitely not. Like, I don't want someone who is too young to understand, because truly, like, your brain does not fully develop until later in life. I wouldn't want a young, impressionable person reading about controlling possessive dynamics and then glamorizing that, romanticizing it, because in these books, it's written in a way that usually doesn't cross the line. Sometimes it does even cross the line, but usually doesn't cross the line, and it's all fun and it's all fiction. But in real life, if you go after a person with this personality type, it can actually ruin your life. Like, I'm not even exaggerating when I say that. And so the gag is, you don't even have to be young to be impressionable necessarily, because there are people who are older, who end up victims of these types of situations where it does get ugly, and the authors usually don't write about those types of endings. You know what I mean? So that's why I feel like kind of some type of way, like, I get it because I have, the kink where I think dominance is, maybe I should not say these words. I do have that interest in a dominant man. I do, giggle and find a lot of these things hot on page, but I need people to understand, if they don't, that can be a red flag, and not in a silly, quirky way, but in a dangerous way. So that's why I just want to be clear that this stuff is taboo, that I do think it's for mature audiences, but even mature audiences should proceed with caution, okay? All right, that is all I'm going to talk about for now. I hope you guys enjoyed. I will see you guys in my next video. Talk to you then. Bye.